heard you bought an apartment. We're here to move in and make peace. My son, Ryan, and my daughter-in-law, Brooke, said this as they stood at my door. After 6 months of throwing me out like an animal, now they wanted to come back. But what they saw when they stepped inside left them frozen. My name is Henry. I am 63 years old. I never imagined the people I loved most in this world would betray me in such a cruel way. It all began the day my wife, Lori, passed away. For 45 years, I was the proper husband, the father who sacrificed for his family, the man who never said no. I cooked, cleaned, and handled everything without asking for anything in return. When Lori died of a sudden illness 2 years ago, my world collapsed. The house where we had built our dreams became an empty, silent place. In the first months, Ryan and Brooke still came to visit. They comforted me and promised I would never be alone. "We're a family, Dad," Ryan said as he hugged me. "We'll always be here for you." Turns out it was all lies. 6 months ago was the most humiliating moment of my life. Ryan and Brooke showed up at the house with a completely different attitude. No more hugs or fake smiles. Brooke wore a sleek red dress, looking at me like I was a cockroach. Ryan held a stack of papers, his face colder than I had ever seen. "Dad, we need to talk," Ryan said bluntly. "Brooke is pregnant and we need more space. This house is too big for one person." It was like a knife stabbed straight into my chest. "What are you saying?" I asked, trembling. Brooke smiled cruelly. "It means you have to move out. We're moving in here. You can find a smaller apartment, something that fits your needs." "But this is my house," I stammered. "I lived here with your mother. This place holds all our family's memories." Ryan replied harshly. "Memories don't pay the bills. Besides, legally, this house is mine too." Lori and I had added Ryan's name to the deed to avoid problems later. We never imagined our own son would throw his father out of his home. "Don't do this to me," I begged, tears spilling over. "I'm your father. I raised you and sacrificed my whole life for you." Brooke burst out laughing mockingly. "Enough, Henry. Stop playing the victim. You've been a burden your whole life. Lori knew it too. She just didn't have the guts to say it. That filthy line trampled on the memory of my late wife." "You have 1 week to pack," Ryan said, avoiding my eyes. "After that, we'll change the locks." 1 week, I screamed in despair. Where am I supposed to live? That afternoon, they left, and I collapsed on the living room floor of my own house. For 45 years, I had given everything to that family. I gave up my dreams, my ambitions, my very self to be the perfect husband and father. I was their refuge, and this was how they repaid me. Like trash. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. Walking through that house, knowing it no longer belonged to me, tore my heart apart. I packed my belongings with trembling hands. 45 years of marriage condensed into just 6 cardboard boxes. On the day I left, they didn't even bother to show up. I set the keys on the kitchen table with a note. Be happy. I called a taxi and carried my boxes to the only place I could afford. A run-down motel in a poor part of Seattle. The room was tiny and damp, with stained walls. My new home, my reward after a lifetime of devotion. In the first few days, I couldn't even eat. I lay there staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering where I had gone wrong. I called them many times. Ryan's number went to voicemail. I texted Brooke, pleading to ask about the pregnancy. Hours later came the reply, "Stop bothering us. We don't want anything to do with you." The following weeks became a routine of survival. At 63, nobody wanted to hire me. "You're too old," they said. I bought the cheapest food, discounted stale bread, cans of tuna. Some days I ate only one meal. After 2 months, I'd lost around 10 pounds. No one cared. Nights were the worst. I lay there, missing Laurie's warmth beside me. One night, the woman next door banged on the wall and yelled, "Shut up, you old crybaby! Some of us need to sleep!" For the first time since leaving home, I felt humiliated to the bone. Even in that awful place, I was still a nuisance. One day, walking past the mall, I saw Brooke coming out of a baby store carrying expensive bags. She climbed into a brand new silver sedan. Clearly, they were spending the money that should have gone to keeping up the house. I ran after her, calling her name. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, seeing me in my stained old clothes. "I just wanted to know how you two are. How's my grandchild?" "Your child is fine, and will stay fine as long as they stay away from you." Brooke sped off, leaving me standing on the sidewalk, a discarded man begging for scraps of attention. That night, sitting on the rickety bed, I made a decision. I would not beg any more. I would not humiliate myself for crumbs of affection from traitors. If they wanted to treat me as if I were dead, then I would be dead to them. 2 weeks after that encounter, while cleaning my few belongings, I found something that would change everything. At the bottom of a box, wrapped in old newspaper, lay a stack of letters I hadn't seen in years. Letters Laurie had written but never given me, kept in her private drawer. My hands shook as I opened the first one. My wife's familiar handwriting appeared on the yellowed page. "My beloved Henry, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. There are things I never said, secrets I kept to protect you, but now you need to know everything." I was shaking so hard I almost dropped the letter. Laurie's voice seemed to echo from the other side. "Before I met you, I worked in real estate. With my savings and a few risky investments, I bought several plots of land on the outskirts of Seattle. Back then they were dirt cheap. I thought maybe one day they'd be worth something. The paperwork is in a safe deposit box at First Puget Bank, number 1247. The key is behind our wedding photo, taped down. Henry, if anything happens to me, those plots are probably worth a fortune now. The city has grown out there." I held my breath. I dropped the letter and rushed to the wedding photo. Under the old tape, my fingers touched a small icy key. I understood. The game had changed. I kept reading the remaining letters. Laurie had recorded everything. She had bought 12 parcels, all in areas I now knew were the most valuable in Seattle. "I didn't tell you because you were happy with our simple life," another letter read. "But if one day I'm gone, I want you to know you were never left unprotected. You are the strongest man I've ever known. If anyone hurts you, remember you have the strength to defend yourself. Signed, the wife who always admires you, Laurie." I hugged the stack of letters and cried for hours. Laurie, my darling, was still quietly taking care of me, even after she died. The next morning I went to First Puget Bank. My hands were sweaty as I handed the key to the teller. Safe deposit box number 1247. They took me to a private room and opened the box. Inside were stacks of documents, deeds, plans, and an appraisal updated 6 months before Laurie died. The total value of the 12 parcels was $2,400,000. I dropped into the plastic chair, the whole room spinning. I was a millionaire. I had been living in a shabby motel, humiliated by my own family, while an entire fortune was quietly waiting for me. More important than the money was what it meant. Freedom. I drew up a meticulous plan. Ryan and Brooke had played dirty. Now was my turn. I hired a trustworthy real estate attorney, James Alonzo, and demanded absolute discretion. We formed a shell company called Future Harbor LLC. Within 8 weeks, I sold the first 4 parcels, bringing in $600,000. From that money, I began a silent metamorphosis. I moved to a discreet, clean hotel in downtown Seattle, then into a salon, modern haircut, subtle color to cover the gray skin care. I bought new outfits, elegant yet low-key. The man in the mirror was no longer the broken Henry who walked out of a motel. He was a Henry with purpose. The next step was to find Ryan and Brooke's weak points. I hired a private investigator to review their finances, debts, and what they were paying on the house. A week later, the results didn't surprise me. Ryan had taken out a mortgage on the house. He owed the bank $10,000 in late payments. They were living beyond their means, putting up a shiny facade over empty pockets. Brooke had quit her job to focus on the pregnancy, so they depended entirely on Ryan's income. They were drowning, and they had no idea the water level was about to rise. I called Attorney Alonzo. "It's time to buy a new house, James," I said. "A penthouse in their neighborhood, and I want to make sure they know about it." The trap was set, and now the bait was ready. According to the investigation, the two of them fought about money many times. Neighbors even heard them shouting at night. Greed had pushed them to throw me out. Now it would be the rope that tied them up. I didn't rush. I knew revenge served cold is always more effective. For a few months, I watched them from a distance, learning their routines, their fears. One afternoon, sitting at a cafe across from my old house, I saw them arguing fiercely in the yard. Brooke pointed and yelled. Ryan held his head, helpless. Even without hearing the words, their body language said it all. They were in crisis. That night, I opened my laptop and started looking for a property. Not just anything. I needed a clear symbol. I found a penthouse in the most luxurious building in the city. Summit Tower, 42nd floor, 4 bedrooms, a terrace with a panoramic view, high-end finishes for $1,700,000. I paid 60% in cash and financed the rest under Future Harbor LLC. Perfect. It was the complete opposite of the failed widower image they painted of me. The next morning, I called the broker. "I want to buy the penthouse at Summit Tower. No need to tour. I'll put down the deposit today and close in 45 days. I signed the contract and became the owner of the most sought-after penthouse. I hired a top interior design team. Everything had to project the image of a man who controls the game, not the humiliated widower they remembered. While the interiors were being finished, the investigator brought bad news for them. Ryan was fired from the construction company after repeated lateness and arguing with his boss. Without his paycheck, they couldn't make the mortgage on my house. Brooke, 7 months pregnant, was desperately looking for work. I saw her walk out of her old firm in tears, holding her belly. Panic was all over her face. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Attorney Alonzo," I said over the phone, "the bank has started foreclosure proceedings on the house where my son is living. They've missed 3 payments. How much time before they lose the house by law?" "About 2 months if they don't cure." "Buy that mortgage. I want to become their creditor." 2 weeks later, through Future Harbor LLC, I officially became the new creditor on the old house. From now on, Ryan and Brooke owed my company the entire remaining mortgage balance, and they were currently $10,000 past due. Of course, they had no idea. I hired a collections firm to apply pressure, daily calls, warning letters, home visits, all legal, but firm enough to keep them up at night. I quietly leaked comments around the neighborhood. Soon, everyone knew Ryan and Brooke's perfect family was going broke. Brooke had to sell the new car for cash. I saw her standing at the bus stop in a wrinkled maternity dress, carrying grocery bags from the cheapest market. The board had turned, and this time I was the one making the move. The contrast was stark. Brooke was no longer the arrogant woman who had thrown me out. Ryan was driving a taxi at night to make ends meet. The one who called me a burden now looked like he was carrying the whole world on his back. They argued constantly. Brooke blamed Ryan for losing his job. Ryan yelled back, "Your mother was right. You're useless and will never get better." I realized Brooke was closer to my former wife than I thought. And clearly, my late wife had a very clear assessment of her own son. It was time for the next strike. I bought the commercial debt tied to the office building, where the construction company that fired Ryan was headquartered, becoming a major creditor of the building's owner. I signed a 10-year master lease with the building where Brooke used to work. When she tried to beg for her position back, what awaited was a new management board and new policies conveniently not favorable to employees who had resigned abruptly. Everything was going according to plan. Only the reveal was missing. One evening, while dining alone in the Summit Tower penthouse, I decided to plant a seed of doubt so they would come to me. I hired an actor to play Laurie's old friend. The assignment was clear. Run into Ryan in public and blurt out, "I heard Henry lives in a penthouse now. How does he have the money for that?" The plan ran like clockwork. The actor met Ryan at a gas station and delivered the exact lines. That night, Ryan came home with 1,000 questions, clearly starting to suspect he had judged his father wrong. A few days later, I saw them digging for information about me, asking neighbors. When they confirmed I truly lived in one of the most expensive buildings in Seattle, Brooke practically hid at home for 3 days to process the information. Ryan was lost, confused. The man they tossed out like trash was living a life better than they could ever dream of. The call came exactly as predicted. On Tuesday morning, I was having breakfast on the balcony, watching the city wake beneath my feet when the phone rang with a number I recognized instantly. Ryan. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. I had to sound surprised. "Hello, Dad. It's me, Ryan." His voice was smaller, shakier, none of the swagger from the day he threw me out. "Ryan, how did you get my number? Finding you wasn't easy." "Dad, we need to talk." "Oh, now you need to talk. Funny, a few months ago, you said I was a burden and wanted nothing to do with me." "Dad, things are a mess. Brooke is 8 months pregnant and I lost my job. We heard that you have a penthouse." Finally, the real reason. Not family love, not genuine remorse. Just financial need dressed up as reconciliation. A penthouse. Who told you that? When I left the old house, I had nothing. Things change, son. The person you look down on most might be the one full of surprises. Could we come visit you and talk it out? The brazenness made me pause. Come visit, Dad? Are you sure? The last time we met, you called me a bitter old man. Dad, we were so stressed then. We didn't mean it. Lies. They meant every cutting word that day. "All right," I said. "Tomorrow afternoon, you too can come. But one condition. No lying. If you come here, you tell the whole truth about what you did." "Yes, Dad, I promise." I gave them the address and told them to come up to the 42nd floor. After hanging up, I sat on the balcony and scripted every detail. The message had to be crystal clear. The man once looked down on and now held all the power. I hired a catering service to prepare an elegant lunch. Salmon, gourmet salads, imported wine. I checked every corner. Fresh flowers, cushions perfectly placed, art lit just right. Every detail said I had won while they were sinking. Most important was my appearance. I went to the city's most upscale salon. I bought a new beige suit, elegant, not showy, designer shoes. In the mirror was someone entirely different from the man who once left that house in tears. The night before the meeting, I called Attorney Alonzo. "They're coming tomorrow. I want the mortgage file and the properties I bought around their area ready." "Do you plan to reveal that you're their creditor?" "Not yet. I want to gauge their level of desperation first, but leave all the paperwork out on the table." At exactly 2 p.m., the front desk called. "Mr. Henry, there's a couple here claiming to be your son and daughter-in-law. Send them up." I stood before the living room's glass wall, my back to the door, looking out over the city stretching to infinity. I wanted the first thing they saw to be the scale of this view. The private elevator opened, slow, hesitant steps on the marble floor. The doorbell rang. I had been thrown out of my home. Now they were begging to enter mine. This was the moment I had waited for. "Come in! It's unlocked!" I said without turning around. They stepped in and froze. Silence pressed down. I could feel their shock, their bewilderment, their confusion. Then I turned. Ryan stood on the threshold, mouth open, eyes wandering around the room like he'd landed on another planet. He was wearing old jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Brooke kept a hand on her pregnant belly, her eyes glued to the glass wall, looking down over Seattle, the city where now I was the one standing above. Ryan looked noticeably worn out, deep dark circles, several days of stubble. He was no longer the arrogant man who had thrown me out, just a shattered shadow. Brooke stood beside him, heavily pregnant, her face stunned. Her clothes looked cheap and faded, and her skin had the gray pallor of someone crushed by stress. "Hello, Ryan." "Hello, Brooke." I kept my voice calm. "Welcome to my home." "Dad, how is this possible?" Ryan's voice faltered. "All of this apartment, this life." Brooke stayed silent, but I saw tears rising. Not tears of joy at seeing me again, but tears of realizing what they had lost when they treated me like trash. "Sit down." I gestured lightly to the Italian leather sofa. "We have a lot to discuss." They sat like robots, still dazed. The contrast was perfect. Them, broken and desperate, sitting in my palace, something they would never reach. "Can I get you something?" I asked, with the icy courtesy of a perfect host. "French mineral water, a fine single malt, or specialty whole bean coffee?" I deliberately named expensive things. "Water. Water is fine," Brooke whispered, wiping her tears. I brought the drinks back and sat in the single chair opposite them, crossing my legs. "All right," I said slowly. "You said you wanted to talk. I'm listening." Ryan cleared his throat. "Dad, first, we're sorry for how we treated you. We were so stressed. Pregnancy expenses." "Stressed?" I cut in, soft but sharp. "Is that your reason for throwing your own father out of his home after 45 years of marriage?" "Not a reason, but the truth. Brooke's hormones, pressure at work. Ryan, I use the same tone I once used to teach a 5-year-old. Don't lie. You didn't kick me out because you were stressed. You kicked me out because you thought I was a useless old man with nothing you could exploit. Brooke finally spoke. Her voice cracked. Henry, I didn't mean those awful things I said. I was scared. Which awful things, Brooke? Be specific. I remember every word. She went even paler. I said you were a burden, that Laurie knew it too but didn't have the courage to say it, that my child needed a stable home, not the complaints of a bitter old man. Good. At least now you're honest. I stood, walked to the glass wall, and turned my back. You miscalculated, I said, not looking at them. You thought you knew my whole story, that you knew exactly the worth of Henry, a widower. Turns out you never knew who I am. Dad, can you explain? Where did the money come from? Ryan asked. Not so fast. Do you want to know because you truly want to understand, or to calculate how much you can squeeze out now that you found out your father is rich? Then why wait 6 months to call? Why not look for me when I was living in a shabby motel, eating 1 meal a day, lying on a bed full of bed bugs? I turned and met his eyes. I'll tell you a story. Laurie, the wife I loved, had protected me all my life in ways I never knew. She invested, bought real estate, laid out a plan for my future without my knowing. Ryan snapped his head up. Mom had money saved. Your mother left a fortune, Ryan, a fortune that now belongs to me, and you could have shared in it if you were the kind of people who deserved an inheritance. Brooke burst into tears. Henry! We didn't know. If we'd known Laurie left money, then you would have behaved differently, shown me respect only because I had money. Is that what you mean, Brooke? I sat down again. You treated me badly because you thought there would be no consequences. You humiliated me because you believed I was weak. But it turns out you were wrong about everything. Ryan mustered the courage to ask the question that had been burning him up. Dad, how much money do you have? I smiled without warmth. I have enough to buy the building you live in. In fact, if I feel like it, I can buy the entire block. They went silent. I also have enough to send Brooke's child to any top university, or to ensure they don't receive a single cent from me. I have the power to change your lives for the better, or wipe them clean. While I think, why don't you tell me about your current finances? I know you lost your job. I know Brooke sold the car. I know you're behind on the mortgage. Brooke collapsed inward. We don't know what to do. The baby is due in a month. No money. They're about to foreclose. We have nowhere to go. Sounds grim, I said evenly. You must feel very vulnerable, very desperate, very alone. I let them absorb every word. Please, Brooke hiccuped. Henry, please. We know we hurt you, but the baby, your grandchild, did nothing wrong. My grandchild, I asked softly. What makes you sure I want anything to do with them? After all, you're the one who said the baby needs a stable home, not the complaints of a bitter old man. I was wrong. The baby needs their grandfather. The baby needs to know you're an extraordinary man. Extraordinary? 6 months ago, I was just a useless burden. Dad, we know we don't deserve forgiveness. We were cruel and unfair, but we're desperate. I'm listening, I said. You're 3 payments behind on the mortgage. The bank sent a foreclosure notice. In 2 weeks, they'll take the house. The house that used to be mine. I added gently. We truly don't know what to do. Let me be clear about what we are. Strangers. You made that true when you decided I had no value. But there's something more important. You need something from me, and I have the power to give it or not. That is our current family relationship. The right question is, what are you willing to trade to get my help? We're your family, your son and daughter-in-law, Brooke whispered. No, I said firmly. You lost the right to play the family card the day you threw me out. From now on, you're debtors who betrayed your creditor. That difference matters. What do you have to do to prove you understand? Tomorrow, before you come here, you will visit everyone who was there the day you threw me out. Tell the exact truth and apologize on my behalf. I want the entire block to know the new owner of this area admits to a grave misjudgment. I smiled for the first time. Oh, and I didn't mention this. I've bought 4 units on the block where you live. That area is rising fast. Smart investment, which means from now on, your entire neighborhood knows the truth, and they will know why you lost your house. Brooke held her belly as a contraction rolled through. I'm just stressed. No matter what you decide. When it's time to give birth, I'll be there if you need me. The baby is my grandchild. I won't take my anger out on someone innocent. Ryan covered his face. Dad, how did our family end up like this? Because you chose money over love. You have until tomorrow night. Either accept all my conditions or face the consequences on your own. If we accept, will things go back to the way they were? Never. But we might build something new based on respect, not on assumptions about who has the power over whom. As they stood to leave, I added, one more thing. When you come back tomorrow, bring a handwritten letter, 1 each, explaining what you learned from this and how you plan to change. Handwriting carries weight. I need to see that you understand the gravity. They left in silence. I closed the door and stood in the luxurious room, feeling a strange hollow echo in my chest. I had won, but for the first time in months, I asked myself whether victory was as sweet as I'd imagined. The next morning, reports poured in. Ryan and Brooke started knocking on doors at dawn, publicly apologizing as I demanded. My former neighbors called me. Henry, you wouldn't believe it. Your son and daughter-in-law came to my house crying and apologizing on your behalf. He told me everything. At every house, Ryan and Brooke retold the story, publicly apologizing for treating me unfairly. By noon, the entire block knew the truth. By afternoon, I prepared for the final meeting. A gray pantsuit, elegant yet authoritative. This was a negotiation where I held all the power. I had ready the debt. Cancellation papers, an employment contract for Ryan, a list of apartments they could move into, and the terms for the new family agreement. Right on time, the bell rang. They looked different, smaller, humbler, and more genuine than I had ever seen. The time for cruelty was over. The time for reconstruction had begun. Good evening, I said neutrally. Did you bring everything I asked for? Yes. Ryan handed me the handwritten letter. They sat on the edge of the sofa, the posture of people waiting for instructions, no longer those who came to demand. I opened Ryan's letter first. Dear Dad, these past days I've looked hard at the man I've become, and I'm ashamed. I kicked you out of your own house because I thought I had the right. I treated you like trash because I thought you had no value beyond what you could give me. I promised to be a better father to my son than I was a son to you. Ryan, it was short, but honest. I could feel the words came from the heart. Not just from desperation. I opened Brooke's letter. Dear Henry, I have no excuse. I used words as weapons to hurt you. During the months my life fell apart, I finally understood what it means to be fragile, afraid, dependent on others' kindness. Exactly what you felt when we threw you out, except you had done nothing to deserve it. I want my son to grow up knowing his grandfather, only if you choose to forgive. Brooke. I set both letters down and was silent for a long moment. "All right," I said. "You've apologized publicly, and the letters show some understanding. Are you ready to hear the final terms?" I picked up the file. Point 1. Wipe out the entire $10,000 of past due mortgage. The house is debt-free. They were stunned. Ryan just stared. "But don't celebrate yet. There are conditions. The house will be placed in a trust for my grandchild. You two can live there until they turn 18. After that, they decide the property's fate. Understood?" "Understood." Point 2. Ryan starts work this coming Monday at Meridian Construction, a respected firm in Seattle. Starting salary, $5,000 a month. That's more than double your old salary. That's the value of an employee who's on time, works decently, plus a recommendation that carries real weight. I looked Ryan straight in the eye. Point 3. During the first year, I am your silent supervisor. One single late arrival, one act of swaggering arrogance, one flash of the conceit you showed your father, and you're fired on the spot with no chance at any major construction company in this city. Clear? "Clear," Ryan swallowed. Point 4. Brooke will receive full prenatal care at a top clinic. On my dime. Brooke burst into tears, this time with relief. Point 5. When my grandchild is born, I will be there if you want, and I have the right to regular visits, not as a favor you grant, but as a right I've earned as the grandfather. Yes, of course, they both said at once. I closed the file. My voice was steady. And remember this well. If you reject the terms, or try to haggle, or manipulate, I'll trigger foreclosure immediately. You'll leave the house with nothing. "We understand," Ryan whispered. "Good. Now sit down, sign here, and start over. The right way." I added 2 more terms I hadn't revealed. Point 6. From now on, every major family decision, moving, jobs, the child's education, must be discussed with me first. Brooke hesitated. "Isn't that a bit controlling? From the day you proved you didn't know how to put everyone's well-being first, you lost absolute autonomy in this family." Ryan nodded. "You're right, Dad." Point 7. Once a month for the next 5 years, you two will come to have dinner with me, not to pretend we're a normal family, but to keep communication open and for me to confirm you're keeping your end of the deal. We spent nearly an hour signing papers, reviewing details, fixing timelines. When it was done, Brooke hesitated. "Will there ever be a day when you truly forgive us? Or will we always just be an obligation in your life?" The question made me pause. "Honestly, Brooke, I don't know yet. Forgiveness can't be put on a schedule. It grows over time. If actions prove it's deserved, maybe over time we can build something new. Not the old relationship because it died the day you threw me out, but something else, more honest, better." For the first time, I smiled with genuine warmth. "Maybe ask me again in 5 years. That night when they left, I stood alone in the penthouse. I didn't get back the old family. That family is gone forever. But I had something more precious. Respect, candor, and the possibility of a future built on solid ground instead of fragile illusions. A few months later, when my grandchild was born, I was there. And when the baby was placed in my arms for the first time, I understood it was all worth it, not for revenge, but for the chance to begin again. When the door closed, I didn't choose payback for the sake of it. I chose boundaries, then chose compassion. Today's story reminds us family isn't measured by blood or promises, but by respect, honesty, and responsibility. Forgiveness doesn't erase wrongs overnight. Justice helps us stand. Compassion helps us move forward. What do you think? If you were Henry, what conditions would you set to protect your heart while still leaving the door open for a new beginning? How should boundaries and love be balanced in a family that's been hurt? Share your perspective in the comments. Your story might help someone find their way home. If these stories resonate with you, stay with the channel so we can keep listening, learning, and growing together through each next chapter. See you in the next video.